Many thanks for joining us. This is Qtv News with me, Answane Sonyasi. Coming up in local news, on his Meet the People tour, President Barrow says the democracy enjoyed in the Gambia is incomparable to any other country, including America. The Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, calls on development partners to provide more support to the National Social Protection Secretariat in order to reach out to more vulnerable families, especially those in the rural areas. An independent report into the Gambia government's COVID-19 relief finds failings in how marginalized groups were handled. At the TRRC, a former Army general denies he was offered deal to try to implicate the former CDS in a coup plot. In business news, through the EU-funded project, the GIS has supported 3 community gardens with farming tools and 7 entrepreneurs in LRR as part of the business enhancement package. In international news, African governments are coming up with novel ways to tackle corruption, including technology. Well, for more on these and other stories coming up, do stay tuned. And now a look at the news in detail. The Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, has called on development partners to provide more support to the National Social Protection Secretariat in order to reach out to more vulnerable families, especially those in the rural areas. More in this report. Addressing stakeholders, the Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, commended development partners for their continuous support to national social protection efforts. However, she adds that government recognizes that the current system is faced with various deficiencies, hence the need for more partnership in order to reach out to more vulnerable families, especially those in the rural areas.
And existing schemes, strengthening leadership and coordination, monitoring and evaluation, and financial arrangements. We will also ensure that through our various coordination structures, support from development partners and civil society organizations is aligned and harmonized with the government's policy.
Giving a brief report on the National Social Protection Secretariat's activities since the last committee meeting, Alhaji Barrow, NSPC coordinator, highlighted the importance of such stakeholder engagements. He says this meeting avails them an opportunity to take stock of the achievements and challenges confronting the Secretariat.
Across ministries and sub-national agencies, through the development of operationalization of clear institutional arrangements. We also ensure that social protection objectives are explicitly integrated into sectoral strategies and plans, and to promote greater links and complementarity between programs. We are also responsible for the development and integration of action plans that would provide a basis for annual work plans.
With stakeholders preparing to also deliberate the implementation of the 2020-2025 policy aimed at improving social protection in the Gambia, Jonathan Lewis, UNICEF country representative, urged for an all-inclusive approach to social protection challenges in the country.
The impact of COVID-19 needs to be seen from 2 points of view. Number one, the way that it has exacerbated and magnified previously existing vulnerabilities and exclusions, so we have to be very keen to continue monitoring that. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, the way that it's going to have an impact in the availability of fiscal resources in what is already a resource-constrained.
Meanwhile, the Vice President also received 9 vehicles donated to the SSNP through NANA and partners, and urged officials to take good care of the vehicles in order to ensure longevity. She also revealed that government, through the NSPS, will soon house the first ever National Social Registry, a data collection process expected to be carried out in 30 districts, capturing a database of approximately 80,000 households. Thursday's meeting was chaired by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Women, Children and Social Welfare. Answane Sonyasi for Qtv News. On his Meet the People tour, President Barrow says the democracy enjoyed in the Gambia is incomparable to any other country, including America.
Speaking on Wednesday at well-attended meetings in Misiraba Mariam in Kantora District and Damfa Kunda in Tumana District, President Barrow, while calling on Gambians to join him to advance the cause of national development, said the Gambia struggle is over. He describes those engaged in a fresh struggle as doing so for their own selfish interest or those they support. The reason being, he said, is that what Gambians were fighting against, such as lack of democracy, is no more in the country. He cited the freedom and democracy enjoyed by every Gambian, saying the democracy in the Gambia at the moment even supersedes the democracy in America.
Melbe kelo la hani sai ha joni ko mandula ben ko hada be goni kunna nafa kelo ibe wolel den ben ko koye moy gambe hakoto e fangol kungol ibe wolla kelo ko koye mo gambe hakoto joni walla melbe ma ko kay ko mo kilina fasa o bay on ko bulendo godo dan bari mantra gambia fasa kan ko denk bari bi démocratie membe gambia wala cher america fa wala démocratie an démocratie woni gambia da woni muri de wala america sa fan soto membe gambia nyonta dunia kono bi.
He advised them against people who are bent on deceiving them with unfounded claims to lead them into baseless struggles. He preaches the importance of being truthful, saying he believes in the politics of development. The election in 2021, he went on, will determine whether Gambians want progress or otherwise. He promises the people of Kantora and Tumana that before 2025 they will all have access to electricity, which he said is critical to national development. On agriculture, he said the government was able to subsidize fertilizer at a reasonable price as he announced the procurement of new tractors for the farmers. At both meetings, the people of these areas, like others, want the construction of roads including the Vakunda-Basse route, improved electricity supply and health facilities to cater for the health needs of the people. The president's dialogue with the people tour continued on Thursday with meetings in Wuli Sutukoba, Wuli Gunjurkuta, and Sandu Naude. On Friday, the president will hold meetings in Sara Sofi and Brikamaba. Reporting for Qtv News from Basse in the Upper River region, I am Aliu Sise.
The Westminster Foundation for Democracy has published a report on the Gambia's response to COVID-19 from an assessment of its impact on marginalized groups, including women and persons with disabilities. The result of this assessment reveals that the Gambia's response to COVID-19 was not sensitive to the needs and concerns of marginalized groups. More in this report.
The government's COVID-19 response has gone through an assessment by representatives of civil society organizations and participants from government bodies. This was done through a series of dialogues organized by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy and funded by the British High Commission. The report is being launched at this ceremony.
That was an ambitious national response, but did this response actually look at the specific circumstances of specific populations? And the whole idea is to make sure that ultimately and in future, when we engage in these kind of emergencies, when these kind of situations emerge, it is important that lawmaking, service provision, these restrictions that we would come along are considered, are holistic, are comprehensive.
The government's COVID-19 response strategy was examined during the dialogues, where participants measured access, inclusivity, and participation of women and persons with disabilities. The assessment ranged from the policy design stage to implementation of government's COVID-19 response measures. The inclusion of the report reveals a low level of consultation and inclusivity in the government's COVID-19 response, particularly regarding women and persons with disability.
It was interesting to find out things that what people generally will take for granted were challenges to some groups of Gambians. The conversation was frank, highly interactive, and constructive. The dialogue was crucial, and I hope that lessons learned will go a long way in ensuring an inclusive Gambia, where all stakeholders will be consulted, included, and participate for a better Gambia.
When the coronavirus pandemic hit, the most vulnerable groups of society, especially persons with disabilities, have been the most affected. 7 local civil society organizations representing persons with disabilities took part in the assessment, and among their challenges were limited access to COVID-19 related information from government and its e-learning education program.
If you also look at earning a living, as I've earlier indicated, persons with disabilities suffered because the state do not actually do much in order to set up any plan or any program in order to rescue them. There was no specific national response to assist persons with disabilities in terms of this difficult moment.
For the women questioned, their experience during the pandemic further strengthened their societal problems, leading to an increase in maternal death, sexual, domestic, and gender-based violence.
COVID affected everybody, but it affected women and children the most. I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about what I'm saying. You had women who were pregnant, who couldn't go to the hospitals because everybody was afraid and told that you would catch COVID when you get to the hospital. Women already give birth at home, but it increased. Then what did we hear? A lot of death happened.
The recommendation in the report offers possible solutions for a better approach towards improving government's consultation with and inclusion of civil society organizations to take informed measures that can address the needs of the most vulnerable in society.
So one of my pleas to you is don't forget this report. This won't be the first crisis we find, and many of the lessons learned, particularly as it pertains to women, to people with disabilities, to children, are applicable in many other circumstances, including day-to-day life.
From this program, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy plans to share the report with government and the public, with the hope that our country will learn from the past lessons to address our common problems during emergencies. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Well, we will take our first commercial break, but when we return, we continue with some more local business and international news. Thanks for staying with us. Now, former Army General Mamadou Aliou Ba on Thursday denied implicating Langtombong Tamba in the Ndur Cham's alleged coup plot as part of a deal. Well, Ba was responding to questions from the TRRC's lead counsel about his involvement with those arrested and accused of concealment of knowledge of the 2006 attempted coup. Babukar C has the rest of that story.
Ba said he was arrested, charged and taken to court and sentenced to 25 years in prison for concealment relating to a planned coup. The witness confirmed that former CDS Ndur Cham invited him to his office to inform and involve him of his plans to overthrow Jammeh's government, to which he replied in the negative. The witness said he left Ndur Cham's office. The first person he met was Langtombong Tamba's orderly.
Whilst I was going out, I met the orderly to Langtombong Tamba, no, Modu Jata.
Rimba Findikang Langtombong Tambala orderly Modu Jata na benta jail.
Modu what? Modu Jata.
Modu Jata.
At that time, what position did Langtombong hold?
He was the deputy CDS. So I asked him, you know, where is your boss? He said he's in. Then I went in. I told him that you know, CDS just informed me that you know, he want to overthrow the government of Jammeh today. Are you aware?
Between CDS and Fanyanko, Alaftaya Jamela Mansakunda Buindila B Fango. Fuebuta Kalamalabang?
He looked at me, you know, in the eyes and told me, look, you know, shut your mouth.
The witness said late at night, Langtombong Tamba called him and told him what he said earlier was true, but few hours later, the witness said he was picked up by soldiers at his compound and taken to Mile 2 Central Prison. Ba said he was cuffed and taken to the NIA, where he faced a panel. Under questioning from the lead counsel, he went on to say that the accused persons who faced the panel were all handcuffed, directly contradicting the evidence Langtombong Tamba gave to the commission. He went further to say the interview environment was threatening, as the junglers were all over the hall armed with their rifles. Again, this contradicted what Langtombong Tamba had told the commission. After an investigation and court-martialed, he was sentenced to 25 years in jail for concealment. The witness said he served 3 years, 9 months before he was pardoned by the ex-president, reinstated and paid all his wages. Emeba was asked by the late counsel whether he went to jail with anger and wanted to revenge for his incarceration after he was pardoned. The witness denied it, saying the accusations leveled against him are untrue and his promotion after his pardon were all in line as he was due for promotion before his incarceration. The witness was asked about his role as a witness against Langtombong Tamba during his court-martial trial.
Just suddenly out of the blue, Mr. Witness, you got a pardon. And suddenly, miraculously, the state realized that you could be a witness against Langtombong, and suddenly new charges came up and you became that star witness and he was convicted.
Yeah, I told them that, in fact, in the 2006 coup,
même fa mu koti 2006 coup d'etat nyinto
I have informed Tantomo about it.
When it was put to him that his conviction was lawful and that the monies paid to him after his pardon is wrong, the witness said he was wrongfully convicted despite having knowledge of a coup and not reporting it to the authorities as dictated by the constitution. Lead counsel made the distinction between the sentence being revoked and a pardon, which is what he received. In a long push and pull with the lead counsel, the witness still retained his assertion that he had no role to play in Langtombong Tamba's conviction, despite the coincidental sequence of events from his release to the benefits he got from the government to Lang's incarceration.
If you were not seduced, you were induced.
And I was never induced to, because I gave my statement voluntarily.
But of course you agreed to the deal.
What deal?
The deal to have a pardon. No. Mr. Witness, you realize that as at that same time, another deal was being cooked at mile 2. By Bunja and Yaya Dabo and others to also do Langtombong in at that time. And all of it, all those accusations form the basis of one indictment.
And
you testified. And you were released. Those who refused to testify were not released. How can you convince us that a deal was not struck?
There was never a deal. Council, I was released 8 months. Council 8 months before I testified against law.
So you were released within days of which you made that incriminatory statement. The importance here is not the date of the trial. It's the date you gave the statement. That was the day you did him in.
Babu Karsi, Qtv News.
The Korea International Cooperation Agency, in partnership with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, on Thursday donated 10 modern electrical cookers to the Gambia Prison Service at a ceremony at the Mile 2 Central Prison. Omar Pijalo witnessed the handing over, and this is his report.
The donation is part of the response to the ongoing reform process in the Gambia Prison Service. The modern equipment is expected to promote hygienic conditions in which meals are prepared, as well as provide access to healthy and nutritious meals for the detainees, and to create a green and conducive environment for both detainees and the prison personnel. The equipment will impact positively on the health of the detainees, promote a hygienic and conducive environment through the prevention of the use of firewood, which is detrimental to health and may increase the risk of asthma and other lungs infections, and is also harmful to the environment. The program coordinator at UNODC, Kojo Atisho, said the donations are in response to a need assessment tour his office conducted in the Gambia Prison Service in 2019. While he stresses the need for technical assistance to the prison service in line with the prison reform to prevent prison overcrowding. On behalf of the UN resident coordinator in the Gambia, Narissa Sigulam, said Africa's prisons are usually overcrowded, leading to infections. She thanked the government for its commitment to improving the welfare of prisoners. Christina Fomenki, a crime prevention and criminal justice officer at UNODC, who spoke on behalf of the Koika office, gave assurances of Koika's continuing support to the prison department and called on the prison authorities to make good use of the equipment. A visibly joyful Ansumana Mane, Director General Gambia Prison Service, said the cookers will reduce pollution in our prison centers and thanked the donors for the gesture, adding that under his leadership, the prison service is committed to improving the prisons to international standards. DG Mane said 6 of the 10 cookers will be used at the Mile 2 Central Prison, 2 in Joswan and 2 in Janjambre prisons respectively. Representing the Minister of the Interior, Sajo Jata, a senior assistant secretary at the Ministry of Interior, thanked the donors and assured them of his ministry's readiness for more partnership while calling for more support to the prison department. Mile 2 prison was built by the British colonialists in 1920 in a swampy mangrove area infested with mosquitoes. Situated along the Banjul Highway, the prison has 3 areas: a security wing, a main yard, and a remand wing. The security wing is partitioned off from the central prison's main yard by a thick 4-meter-high wall. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
The UN system in the Gambia and other stakeholders came together to discuss and assess the draft Common Country Analysis, hoping to achieve the 2030 SDGs development agenda. The policy will be used to address national development challenges. Ajibintu Drame tells us more.
The CCA is a critical component of the United Nations Sustainable Development Framework preparation. These discussions are the first stages of the process to inform and support the cooperation framework with the government of the Gambia. The Gambia visions and endeavors include eradicating poverty in all forms, create employment, preserve the country's ecological balance, and have a stable governance system. Seraphine Wakana, the UN resident coordinator, thanks stakeholders and partners for their inputs in developing the CCA. She outlined the recommendations and emphasized the collective responsibility in finalizing the draft report.
People are saying we need more. We need to see more infrastructure in the social sector. We need to see more services. So meaning that policy and also advocacy and also decentralized to the community, because most of the time you will find services in the capital city, and so there's this inequality in terms of urban and rural area, but also in terms of gender, because women will have many issues to address. Labor, the service depth in the Gambia, they need to improve on transforming the economy and diversifying the source of income, because relying only on tourism will not help the Gambia. You see, for example, now with COVID, the tourism is not going to have the same level of contribution as what we had before. So we need to reflect on how to address this.
Salimata Iti Toure, the Deputy Secretary General at the Office of the President, says in achieving sustainable development, a peaceful environment is essential for both the formal and informal sectors to thrive.
For us to achieve this feat, the CCA, in its bid to be more responsive to and reflective of evolving country context, will examine progress, gaps, opportunities, and bottlenecks against the Gambia's commitment to achieving the 2030 agenda and respecting the principles of the UN Charter and other UN norms and standards.
Jules Cisse, the Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, says the CCA is timely as the government is in the process of delivering on the National Development Plan.
The midterm evaluation, together with other studies and assessments, will inform the prioritization of the National Development Plan. The reprioritized UN NDP will be implemented until end of 2020 and serve as COVID-19 recovery strategy.
The CCA report provides an overview of the country's context and current state of progress, focusing on vulnerable populations, most especially those at risk of being left behind. Ajibintu Dwame, QTV News.
And from that report, we take our second commercial break, but still to come is international and sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Be reminded you're watching QTV News. Over now to business news. Now, through the EU-funded project, the G's supported 3 community gardens with farming tools and 7 young entrepreneurs in LRR as part of the business enhancement package. Well, this story by Fudemane is narrated by Mudmboj.
The $700,000 worth equipment support includes 2 caterpillars, 2 wheelbarrows, a hosepipe, shovels, 3 watering cans, and other simple farming tools to each of the 3 communities, Genoy, Manduwar, and Bureng in the Lower River region. 7 young entrepreneurs also benefited from the package in different trades such as welding, bakery, and animal husbandry. Mr. Swaibo Cham, the component head for business development GIZ, explained the 2 components of the package and admits that it is an opportunity for the beneficiaries to impact positively on the lives of other young people in their communities.
We are gathered here to distribute equipment or enhancement packages to young people in NRR. And like I stated earlier, all this is through the techie fee, which is funded by the EU TF fund, where we train young people in TVET and in business development. Under the support package, we have about 5 different components. We have the mini grant and the solar grant. The mini grant and solar grant are administered by NACUP. It's open to youths of LRR, URR, and GBA. where they collect form, make applications to NACUC. There is a committee, an independent body that sits and review those applications, and members of the public are selected. Now the responsibility is on you to utilize those support that are coming your doorstep. The responsibility is on you to create an environment where opportunities are created for young people to be employed either at these community gardens or at the individuals that we are supporting.
Mr. Cham also reminded the beneficiaries of the subsequent monitoring and evaluation to be done to assess and monitor the effectiveness of the support. On behalf of the farmer beneficiaries, Musukeba Kamara expressed delight and said the materials will go a long way towards enhancing their farming activities. She further thanked GIZ and partners for the support.
We thank God. We are very happy with this support. Before, I used my hands for weeding, but with the help of these materials now, it will go a long way towards enhancing our farming activities. I just have to thank GIZ and partners for helping us with such materials.
A young welder, Aliu Damfa, another beneficiary, has this to say.
I am very happy with the support, and I will tell my fellow youths that we can make it here without going through the back way. I will support my colleagues to be as good as I am today.
Currently in the LRR, 14 young people are undergoing agro-processing training as part of the GIZ Qtv project, and the project aims to create more space for youth of LRR to specialize in entrepreneurship. The project is also targeting to train 25 youth in beekeeping, 25 in horticulture, 25 in agro-processing, and 25 in bakery to enhance their businesses. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
Now, as part of its Rural Infrastructure Development Project implementation, GAMWorks agency on Thursday concluded 4 days capacity building program for local contractors. More in this report. The training is organized to enhance the skills and knowledge of contractors, especially in construction and contract management, with partners drawn from construction companies across the country. At the end of the training, Ibrahim Cham, Director General of GAMWorks, expressed his delight with participants for showing a keen interest in taking part in the training and revealed plans to organize a construction forum in the near future. However, he also urged them to register their companies to stand a better chance of being awarded contracts.
Construction industries haven't received the recognition that it deserves. I mean, if you consider the fact that as GAMWorks, every year we implement projects in the millions of dollars every year, and all of those are implemented by a contractor, and that is just GAMWorks, not to talk of Minister of Works, not to talk of Minister of Basic Education, or not to talk of Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Health, and all the other sectors. And all of those, those infrastructure, all of those civil works have been done by contractors.
Babukar Sise, Senior HR Manager at GAMWorks, says they intend to organize more of such trainings for contractors.
They were really keen on attending the program to the extent that we could have got double the number. So for that, really want to thank GECON and his members, for seeing the importance of this training, and as Mr. Cham said, sparing your time to come and attend. That really shows that you have an interest in, building your capacity and improving, your working methods.
On behalf of the participants, Usainu Allen, Secretary of the Gambia Association of Construction Contractors, commended GAMWorks and their partners for building their capacities. However, he called on government to award more contracts to Gambian contractors, adding that this will help reduce unemployment in the country.
If the right mechanisms are put in place, this challenge of the back way or unemployment or lack of opportunities by youth as well as the Gambian citizens will be mitigated seriously, significantly. So our plight or our fight really should be how the environment will be made conducive for those involved in the construction profession.
Participants were each awarded a certificate following 4 days of intensive training on construction and contract management. Thursday's closing ceremony was also attended by Sajo Jah, GAMWorks Director of Finance, government officials and partners. Answane Sonyasi for QTV News. In international news, ICTs are increasingly seen by African governments, activists and civil society organizations as important tools to fight corruption, which continues to stifle economic growth and good governance across the continent. Momun Boj has the rest of that report.
The African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption was adopted nearly 20 years ago, but virtually all surveys on corruption, from Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index to findings of the Pan-African Afrobarometer Research Network, show that corruption, as Obama once said, remains Africa's biggest impediment to further growth. According to some estimates, the continent loses about $100 billion each year due to corruption. However, in recent years, experts have been talking up the potential of information and communication technologies to make a significant contribution to the fight against corruption. In a Deutsche Welle report, Sierra Leone is offered as an example of a country where political will and international support combined with digital technology is bearing fruitful results in their fight against corruption. In Sierra Leone, an anti-corruption commission, ACC, has been established, and government ministers and members of parliament within 3 months of assuming office are required, together with their spouses and children, to declare their assets and liabilities. According to the Deutsche Welle article, the ACC recently published the names of officials who failed or refused to comply, along with those to face trial in the anti-corruption court. Former President Ernest Bai Koroma is among those facing a corruption trial. The country's Minister of Basic and Senior Education and former Chief Innovation Officer is quoted saying, "Reduction of corruption requires investigation and validation of records, and technology plays a critical role in this." The ACC works closely with the Directorate of Science, Technology and Innovation, which builds and recommends innovative anti-corruption technologies for government departments to use. The lesson to learn, according to the minister, is that anti-corruption bodies should collaborate closely with ICT bodies. Furthermore, all government bodies are required to declare on their websites or social media pages the charges for services and mention which services are free. Online platforms have also been created where Sierra Leoneans can report bribery or any other corrupt practices. Analysts have drawn the conclusion that by reducing the asymmetries of information between public officials and citizens, limiting the discretion of public officials, and automatizing processes, governments, if they have the political will, can make significant headway in the battle against corruption. In a study of the impact of e-government measures on the World Bank Control of Corruption Index, found that the implementation of e-government solutions often resulted in a considerable reduction of the levels of corruption. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have for you in this edition of the news, but before we take a leave of you, here's a recap for main headlines. On his Meet the People tour, President Barrow says the democracy enjoyed in the Gambia is incomparable to any other country, including America. The Vice President, Dr. Aïssatou Touré, has called on development partners to provide more support to the National Social Protection Secretariat in order to reach out to more vulnerable families, especially those in the rural areas. An independent report into the Gambia government's COVID-19 relief finds failings in how marginalized groups were handled. At the TRRC, a former Army general denied he was offered a deal to try to implicate the former CDS in a coup plot. In business news, through the EU-funded project, the GIS has supported 3 community gardens with farming tools and serving young entrepreneurs in LRR as part of the business enhancement package. And in international news, we had how African governments are coming up with novel ways to tackle corruption, including using technology. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of the news, but do join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Until then, bye for now.